emphasis on try to finish Julius Caesar today. Which the whole thing, it's the shortest play that we'll be reading, I'm pretty sure, this semester. It's only, what did I write down?
It's 30 pages.
40 pages.
30.
Is it 30? Julius Caesar, okay. If it's 30, I've got down 40. Maybe it is only 30. But Hamlet's 59. And Hamlet's next. And then Lear's 54. So we left off Act 1, Scene 2 with Cassius and Brutus talking. And Cassius says around, 66 or so. Take that back. 66. Therefore, good Brutus, be prepared to hear, and since you know you cannot see yourself so well as by reflection, I, your glass, will modestly discover to yourself that of yourself which you yet know not of. What's he getting at?
I'll tell you the things that you can't see in yourself.
Exactly. So what are those things?
That he would be a good leader, better than Caesar.
Okay. And he says, the people favor you. Okay. They hear shouting. Brutus. What means this shouting? I do fear the people choose Caesar for their king. Okay. Now, this comes hard on the heels after Cassius saying the people kind of favor you. And then Brutus says, I do fear the people choose Caesar for their king. He's kind of undercutting what Cassius has said. He's also somewhat suggesting, yeah, but the will of the people tends to be a bit, what? Flighty. One moment they're for this person, the next moment they're for this person. Cassius, do you fear it? That is, do you really fear Caesar is king? Then must I think you would not have it so. You desire not to have it so. Brutus, I would not, Cassius, yet I love him well. See, Brutus doesn't have anything personally against Caesar. He loves Caesar. Cassius does have a personal beef against Caesar. Okay? There's a big difference in motivation between Cassius and Brutus. What is it that you would impart to me? If it be aught toward the general good, that is, the common welfare of all of Rome, not just for me, not just my personal good, set honor in one eye and death in the other, and I will look on both indifferently. That is, impartially. If you raise up honor here and raise up death here, he's saying, I'm not going to shy away from either of them. Or I will not make a judgment of what to do based on either of them. For let the gods so speed me as I love the name of honor more than I fear death. I will do what is honorable, even if it results in my death. I know that virtue to be in you, Brutus. I know you love honor, as well as I do know your outward favor. Well, honor is the subject. And he goes on, says, I was born free as Caesar. So we were both born, we were all three, born free men. What's he getting at in this long speech?
We're no longer free men because one rose above the others.
Caesar is going to be what? Tyrant. And tyrant's the right word. Even though today we have only a negative understanding of tyrant. You can be a benevolent tyrant and you can be a malevolent tyrant. You can be a good tyrant or a bad tyrant. He thinks Caesar's going to be a bad tyrant. Okay? So, he says, skipping a bunch, picking up about 1:14, talks about, Caesar and Cassius having been in the Tiber River. And so from the waves of Tiber did I, the tyrant Caesar. That is, I rescued Caesar. And this man has now become a god. And Cassius is a wretched creature and must bend his body if Caesar carelessly but gnawed on. I pulled him out of the drink, and now he's a god and I'm a nobody? He had a fever when he was in Spain. 'Tis true, this God did shake. His coward lips did from their color fly, and that same eye whose bend doth all the world did lose his luster. Now, everything that's being described here is based upon Plutarch's Lives of the Noble Romans, translated by Thomas North in the 16th century, so Shakespeare had access to it. Okay? And it's in Plutarch that we read Caesar was an epileptic and was prone to fits. Okay? And that's what's being described here. Skip a few more lines. 128, ye gods, it doth amaze me, a man of such a feeble temper should so get the start of the majestic world and bear the palm alone. Okay? That is, the honor, the ability to rule. There's another shout. Brutus, I do believe that these applauses are for some new honors that are heaped on Caesar. He's here and he says, the people are just giving him more and more. Honors meaning Caesar's being elevated. All right? Why, man, he doth bestride the narrow world like a colossus. Okay, he's using language that is designed to goad Brutus into action. And we petty men walk under his huge legs and peep about to find ourselves dishonorable graves. We will die dishonored, while Caesar is hailed. Men at some time are masters of their fates. The fault, dear Brutus, is not in our stars. Notice Cassius is going, astrology's a bunch of hooey. No. The fault is in ourselves. How? That we are underlings. Brutus and Caesar. What should be in that Caesar? Why should that name be sounded more than yours? What's he appealing to? Is he appealing to Brutus's sense of honor?
His ego.
Yeah. No, he's appealing to his ego, to his pride. Why? Brutus was a famous general. He had won numerous battles, just as much as Caesar had. Now, in the names of all the gods at once, upon what meat doth this our Caesar feed, that he is grown so great? Okay? Brutus, that you do love me, I am nothing jealous. What would you work me to? I have some aim, that is, I know where you're headed. I'm not stupid. How I have thought of this and of these times I shall recount here. Yeah, I've been thinking the same thing, Cassius, and we'll talk about it later. I would not, for this present, I would not, so with love I might entreat you, be any further moved. In other words, stop. Does he mean I cannot be any further moved? It might be. In other words, he might be saying to Cassius, I've already reached that point. All right? What you have said, I will consider. What you have to say in the future, I will with patience hear and find a time both meet to hear and answer such. Let's save the rest for later to a more fitting time. So, Brutus had rather be a villager than to repute himself a son of Rome under these hard conditions, as this time is like to lay upon us. A villager, not a citizen of Rome itself. He would still be a citizen of the Roman Empire. He's just saying, I'd rather live in Woodbury than in Washington, D.C. Okay? Why? Because it will be unbearable to live in Washington, D.C. under the new administration, so to speak. Okay? So, Caesar comes in and his train, all of his followers. And Brutus says, Look ye, Cassius, the angry spot doth glow on Caesar's brow, and all the rest look like a chidden train. Calpurnia, Caesar's wife, cheek is pale, and Cicero looks with such ferret and such fiery eyes, red, beady eyes. Okay? Caesar says, Let me have men about me that are fat, sleek-headed men, and such as sleep o' nights. Yon Cassius, he sees Cassius and Brutus kind of over on the side, has a lean and hungry look. He thinks too much. Such men are dangerous. Lean and hungry. Well, why might he be lean? Let's follow the metaphor a little bit. He's not been fattened by Caesar. He's not been given spoils and such by Caesar. Okay? That's why he's hungry. Okay? So if you read that into it, I mean, what has Cassius been saying? He's jealous of Caesar. Is Brutus. Caesar. Antony says, Fear him not, he's not dangerous. He's a noble Roman. Would he were fatter. Why? Because if he were fatter, he wouldn't be wanting as much. But I fear him not. Yet if my name were liable to fear, I do not know the man I should avoid so soon as that spare cash. Notice what he's saying here. I fear no man. But if I were, it would be him. He reads much. He is a great observer. He looks quite through the deeds of men. That is, he tries to find the motivations, the causes of men's actions. He loves no plays, as thou dost, Antony. He hears no music. He's not given to entertainments, in other words. Seldom he smiles, and smiles in such a sort as if he mocked himself and scorned his spirit that could be moved to smile at anything. Such men as he be never at heart's ease, whiles they behold a greater than themselves. Notice, such men as him are never content when they hold someone greater than themselves. What has Caesar just said? I'm greater than him. Cassius said to Brutus, we were all born equal. Level playing field. We were all born same social status in life. Okay? So, Casca and Brutus start to talk. Casca, you want to speak to me, Brutus? Aye, Casca. Tell us what chanced today that Caesar looked so sad. That is, what happened that made that angry spot glow on Caesar's brow? Kind of like his brow was furrowed. Well, you were with him. No, I wouldn't ask if I were. Well, there was a crown offered him. Being offered him, he put it by with the back of his hand. So, they offered him the crown and he did this. And then the people fell a shouting. Was that the second noise? Yeah, for that too. They shouted thrice. Cassius says, what was the last cry for? Why, for that too. He was offered the crown. He was offered kingship 3 times. 3 times. Caesar says, no. Aye, Mary was it. And he put it by thrice, every time gentler than other. And at every putting by, mine honest neighbors shouted. Who offered him the crown? Antony. Tell us. Brutus asks Casca. And Casca goes on and says, 239. Well, he put it by once. But for all that, to my thinking, he would fain have had it. He said he didn't want it, but I really think he did want it. Then he offered it to him again. Then he put it by again. But to my thinking, he was very loath to lay his fingers off it. Okay? Caesar was loath to say, no, you don't really want me. And then he offered it the third time. He put it by the third time. And still as he refused it, the rabblement hooted and clapped their chapped hands. Notice, the rabblement. Who is that? Commoners. The mob. Okay? Hooted and clapped their chapped hands, threw up their sweaty nightcaps, uttered such a deal of stinking breath because Caesar refused the crown that it had almost choked Caesar, for he swooned and fell down at it. In other words, at that moment, the third time, when they are cheering and yelling, take the crown, he has one of his seizures. Not very fitting for the future emperor. Cassius. What? He swooned? Fell down a marketplace, foamed at the mouth, and was speechless. Brutus, 'tis very like he hath the falling sickness. That is, he's got epilepsy. Cassius, no, Caesar hath it not, but you and I and honest Casca, we have the falling sickness. Why? Because we're falling down before him, when we ought to be taking from him. Casca, I don't know what you mean by that. Brutus, well, what did he say when he came to himself? That is, what does Brutus mean by that? Do you remember? Oh, when was this? September, I think it was, 2016, leading up to the election. Hillary Clinton had some kind of speaking event in New York. She walks out of the speaking event. She has on these funky, weird glasses. They're not regular sunglasses, according to a bunch of people. They're designed to block a specific wavelength of light that can cause one to have seizures. And she's walking towards this van, and she suddenly goes, woo, and just, loses all control. And her various bodyguards essentially grab her under the arms and whisk her into the van. Oh, I was a little tired. It was hot. It was 70 degrees. It's not hot. What Brutus is asking is, what kind of excuse did he give? How did he try to put this seizure by? Well, Mary, before he fell down, when he perceived the common herd, was glad he refused the crown. So now we're being told the crowd didn't say, yes, give Caesar. The crowd was saying, no. He plucked me up his doublet and offered them his throat to cut. Notice the little Shakespearean anachronism. Caesar wouldn't have been wearing a doublet. He would have been wearing a toga. Okay? But anyways, he pulls open his shirt. And I had been a man of any occupation, if I would not have taken him at a word, I might go to hell among the roads. And so he fell. That is, third time, rips open his coat to expose his neck and essentially say, there, kill me now. Part of the act. When he came to himself again, he said if he had done or said anything amiss, he desired the worships to think it was his infirmity. 3 or 4 wenches said, alas, good soul, Caesar, Brutus. And after that, he came thus sad away. Yep, that's it. Okay. Skip a bunch of lines. Cassius speaks. Brutus leaves. Cassius is alone on the stage. He gets a soliloquy. Now we find Cassius's true motivations. Well, Brutus, thou art noble. Go to The end of the play. And Mark Antony says, this was the noblest Roman of them all. Well, Brutus, thou art noble. Yet I see thy honorable metal may be rot from that it is disposed. Rot. It can be shaped into something other than what it naturally is. Therefore it is meet that noble minds keep ever with their likes. How can it be wrought into something else? If it's noble, it is disposed to nobility. Cassius is saying, but I can bend it and shape it to what? Ignoble purposes. Therefore it is meet that noble minds keep ever with their likes, for who so firm that cannot be seduced. Cassius is saying, there is nobody so firm of mind that cannot be seduced. You just need the right kind of seduction. Caesar doth bear me hard. In other words, Caesar doesn't like me, but he loves Brutus. He should not humor me. Excuse me, if I were Brutus now, and he were Cassius, he should not humor me. That is, give in to me and such. I will this night in several hands in at his windows throw, as if they came from several citizens, writings all tending to the great opinion that Rome holds of his name, wherein obscurely Caesar's ambition shall be glanced at. Whose windows is he going to throw these writings in? Brutus's. And the writings are going to praise Brutus, and they're going to say, Caesar, man, he's a little bit ambitious. You better watch him. 1-3. Thunder and lightning off stage. Why?
Something's awry.
Exactly. This is the whole idea of the great chain of being. Something is wrong in nature. Something is wrong in nature because something is wrong in human nature, in the human realm. Casca says to Cicero, are not you moved when all the sway of earth shakes like a thing unfirm? See, the earth should be firm. It should be unmoving. And it's rocking and rolling. Never till tonight, never till now did I go through a tempest dropping fire. There's lightning everywhere. This is not your normal, summer storm. Either there is a civil strife in heaven, or else the world, too saucy with the gods, incenses them to send destruction. Or our actions are leading the gods to bring our destruction. Cicero, do you see anything more wonderful? And what do we hear? A lion walking down the street by the Capitol. Okay? They were drawn upon a heap. 23. 100 ghastly women transformed with their fear, who swore they saw men all in fire walk up and down the streets. Yesterday the bird of night did sit, even at noonday, upon the marketplace, the owl, etc. Things are out of whack. Cicero, it is a strange disposed time, but men may construe things after their fashion, clean from the purpose of the things themselves. In other words, we have a tendency to do what?
See what we want to see.
Bingo. Rather than seeing things as they are. Comes Caesar to the Capitol tomorrow? He doth. So they talk a bit. Casca then speaks with Cassius and such. And Casca asks Cassius, whoever knew the heavens meant us so? Notice, Casca kind of seems to be superstitious, let's say. He's kind of reading the signs and saying, something bad's going to happen. Cassius, those that have known the earth so full of faults. You see the heavens like this, what? Cassius is saying. when things are wrong down here. Okay? He says, I've been walking around the streets, I've bared my bosom to the thunderstone, etc. Casca says, why? Why did you tempt the heavens? You are dull, Casca, and those sparks of life that should be in a Roman, you do want, that is, you lack. Come on, be a man, a Roman man. Or else you use not. You look pale and gaze and put on fear and cast yourself in wonder to see the strange impatience of the heavens. But you, if you would consider the true cause, why all these fires, why all these gliding ghosts, dead men supposedly, walked the streets, why birds and beasts from quality and kind, why old men, fools, and children calculate, why all these things change from their ordinance, their natures, and performed faculties to monstrous quality, why you shall find that heaven hath infused them with these spirits to make them instruments. Heaven hath infused all of these things that he's just mentioned to make them instruments of fear and warning unto some monstrous state. These are all what? Omens. These are all omens of some impending bad actions. Now could I, Casca, name to thee a man most like this dreadful night, that thunders, lightens, opens graves, and roars as does the lion? There anybody kind of like this? You mean Caesar, right? Let it be who it is. Notice, Cassius, being both smart and conniving, doesn't say, well, of course I mean Caesar. What's he say? I didn't say it was Caesar. You said it was. Let it be who it is. Our yoke and sufferance, 84, show us womanish. We're not acting like men. Okay? Casca says, the senators are going to make Caesar king tomorrow. Cassius, I know where I will wear this dagger then. Cassius from bondage will deliver Cassius. Is he saying that I'm going to take this dagger and I'm going to kill Caesar? No. He's saying, I'm going to take this dagger and I'm going to free Cassius. He will kill himself rather than live how? Subservient to Caesar. He is a free and noble Roman. What was Rome prior to Julius Caesar becoming emperor? A republic. A republic. Okay? Why should, skipping down to about 103, why should Caesar be a tyrant then? Poor man, I know he would not be a wolf, but that he sees the Romans are but sheep. In other words, if the Romans were wolves, if the Romans would fight for themselves, if they would stand up for themselves, Caesar would not be able to take control. Okay? What did Caesar do that made it clear this is what he was seeking? What phrase do we still use? He crossed the Rubicon. See, the law at the time was that the soldiers, the generals with their legions, when they came back to Rome, had to disperse their legions before entering Rome. Caesar didn't. He marched across the Rubicon, that river, with his legions. That was taken to mean Rome is mine. Okay? He were no lion, we're not Romans, hinds. He's saying Caesar's not fearsome. The only reason he looks fearsome is that Romans are like Bambi. Or that Romans are but sheep. Okay? Casca shakes his hand It says, you speak to Casca and to such a man that is no fleeing. I won't say anything of what you've said. Hold my hand. Be factious for redress of all these griefs, and I will set this foot of mine as far as who goes. I'll be right in the thick of it with you. Okay? So, Cinna comes in, 137 and following, and says, man, have you guys seen the strange stuff out tonight? Really odd. Cassius, am I not stayed for? That is, didn't you want? Yes, you are. If you could, but win the noble Brutus to our party. Notice, our party. Who's included? Not Brutus yet. It's Cassius. It's Casca. It's Cinna. They are what are called the conspirators. And Brutus is brought into them. He's not part of the initial conspiracy. Why? He's too noble. 154. Cassius has been saying, hold on, Cinna, don't worry, we'll get him. 154. 3 parts of him is ours already. In other words, I'm just reeling him in. And the man in Tyre upon the next encounter yields him ours. Next time I speak to Brutus, he says, he'll be ours. Notice what's going on here. Brutus is kind of being treated similar to how Caesar is being treated. They're not going to kill Brutus, however. But notice, Brutus isn't part of their natural group. He's outside of it, like Caesar is outside of it. Why? Because of all these characters, who are the most alike? Brutus and Caesar. In what sense? Their nobility. Does Brutus kill Caesar out of anger? No. Does he kill him out of hatred? No. Why does he kill him? Because he is noble and he thinks Caesar is becoming more than himself. It's almost his way of protecting Caesar. And he's going to use that very language later on. Okay? Act 2, scene 1, line 10. It must be by his death. Notice, we can't just depose him. We can't send him off to Pomfret Castle like Bolingbroke did with Richard II. Or would do 1,000 years later. And for my part, I know no personal cause to spurn at him, but for the general. Notice, I have no personal problem with Caesar. It is a problem between Caesar and the general good of Rome. He would be crowned. How that might change his nature. There's the question. Why? Because Caesar, Brutus is implying, has a good nature. Has an honorable nature. But once he wears the crown, all bets are off. Because what does, as Lord Acton said, 1,800 years later, what does power do?
Corrupts entirely.
It corrupts. And Caesar would have absolute power. It is the bright day that brings forth the adder, and that craves weary walking. Crown him. That is the giving him the crown. And then I grant we put a sting in him. Because what happens if he has the crown? According to Shakespeare's history plays and tragedies, take them all together, what happens to seemingly almost every person that wears the crown? What do they then begin to do or think about the people who helped them to the crown?
They're going to take the crown.
They get suspicious. They get fearful of them. Even if the crown was gotten legally, quote unquote righteously, Then I grant we put a sting in him that at his will he may do danger with. The abuse of greatness is when it disjoins remorse from power. And there, in a sense, is the theme of Henry V. Because Henry doesn't disjoin remorse from power. He thinks continually how his father came by the crown and how he came by the crown. He came by the crown honestly. His father didn't. He always remembers his early life. And to speak truth of Caesar, I have not known when his affections swayed more than his reason. He's saying, I've not known a Caesar whose affections have overruled his reason. Up to this point, Caesar has always acted, he says, rationally, logically. But it's like you put the crown on the head and the passions reign. But 'tis a common proof, lowliness is young ambition's ladder, whereto the climber upward turns his face. But when he once attains the utmost round, he then unto the ladder turns his back, looks in the clouds, okay, scorning the base degrees by which he did ascend. Notice the ladder he's describing. Leaves the earth and does what? Ascends to the clouds. Why the clouds? Becomes godlike. And what does the climber then think? Little ones, low ones, base ones. Not me. So Caesar may. Notice, he does not say, so Caesar will. He doesn't assert this is definitely going to happen. It might happen. Then, lest he may prevent. We have to stop Caesar from what? From having the option. We must stop Caesar from becoming what he might become, which really is not Caesar. We must stop him from becoming a monster. And since the quarrel will bear no color for the thing he is, fashion it thus. What he is, augmented, and there's that aug, the same part of the word that is in Augustus, okay, grown great, made godlike, that what he is, augmented, would run to these and these extremities. In other words, we take him, if he grows up that ladder, he will be what? Well, we got to take that to its logical conclusion. And therefore think him as a serpent's egg, which hatched would as his kind grow mischievous. Notice, a serpent's egg is what? Harmless. Can't hurt you. It's only when the serpent hatches out of the egg and grows and becomes what it is destined to become, according to DNA, then the serpent becomes dangerous. Right now, Caesar is not dangerous. We have to prevent him from becoming dangerous. This is George Bush's, preemptive war. This is Minority Report. Stop the crime before it happens. Okay? We have to kill him in the shell. We have to kill Caesar before he becomes a god. And that's why I'm saying, it's kind of like saying we have to kill Caesar while he's still one of us to keep him from what? Becoming something other than what he is. so that the world will remember Caesar this way. The great general of Rome, the great conqueror for Rome. Because this Caesar never did become emperor. His son did. So, Brutus asked Lucius, "Isn't tomorrow the Ides of March?" He says, "Yeah." So Brutus finds a letter and he starts to read. And he still tells us, line 62 or so, "Since Cassius first did wet me against Caesar, I have not slept." Okay? Now, he might mean that literally, or he might be exaggerating. He might mean, I haven't slept much. But if he hasn't slept, how long has gone by? Shakespeare doesn't tell us, 8 hours later, meanwhile, back in Brutus's house. I think it's implied. And night has passed. Brutus hasn't slept. What tends to happen to people's minds when they lack sleep?
They lose it.
They lose it. They don't think as clearly as they normally would. Between the acting of a dreadful thing and the first motion, all the interim is like a phantasma or a hideous dream. That is, between the conception of an idea and the bringing it forth, the doing of it, it's all hazy. The genius and the mortal instruments are then in council, and the state of man, like to a little kingdom, suffers then the nature of an insurrection. That's Hamlet. First act of the play, Hamlet decides, kill Claudius. And it takes him 4 acts to finally do it. Why? Because he tells us he keeps thinking about it, and he doesn't actually do it. Okay? So, Cassius comes in with Casca and Cinna and Decius and others. And Cassius says, "Let us swear our resolution." That is, let's make an oath to each other. All for one, one for all, we kill Caesar, etc. Brutus, no, not an oath. 114. "If not the face of men, the sufferance of our souls, the times of use. If these be motives weak, if our motives are not right and are not good, let's stop right now. And every man go off to your own bed. So let high-sided tyranny rage on, till each man drop by lottery. But if these, as I'm sure they do, bear fire enough to kindle cowards and to steal with valor, these what? If these motives, if we are acting on the side of right, or as some of our politicians would say, if our motives are on the right side of history," what an idiotic statement, okay? "They would what? Then the people will move along with us. What need we any spur but our own cause to prick us to redress?" He's saying, we don't need oaths to move us forward. What other oath than honesty? To honesty engage, that this shall be, or we will fall for it.
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't have it.
That should be our oath. What we're doing is right. And we will do it, or die trying. Swear priests and cowards and men cautelous, old feeble carrions, and such suffering souls that welcome wrongs. These are the kinds of people who swear oaths. Unto bad causes swear such creatures as men doubt. Okay? Do not stain the even virtue of our enterprise, nor the insuppressive metal of our spirits, to think that or our cause or our performance did need an oath. When every drop of blood, every Roman bears, nobly bears, is guilty of a several bastardy. He's saying, we don't need to swear by the gods. All right? But what about Cicero? Can we get him? He said, For his silver hairs will Metellus says, his silver hairs will purchase us a good opinion and by men's voices to commend our deeds. In other words, if we can get old Cicero on our side, and people go, well, if he's got, like the former Secretary of State supporting him. Decius. Caesar's the only one we're going to kill, right? Line 155. Shall no man else be touched? Cassius. I think it is not meet Mark Antony, so well beloved of Caesar, should outlive Caesar. Cassius wants Mark Antony to die too. Let Antony and Caesar fall together. Brutus, no. Our course will seem too bloody to cut the head off and then hack the limbs like wrath and death and envy afterward. For Antony is but a limb of Caesar. In other words, cut the head off and the limb, the hand, Antony, what? Dies too. He will lack all power. He will lack any authority. No. Let's be sacrificers, not butchers. Sacrificing what? Oh, that we then could come by Caesar's spirit and not dismember Caesar. If we could somehow remove Caesar's spirit from the body without killing him. But alas, Caesar must bleed for it. And gentle friends, let's kill him boldly, but not wrathfully. In other words, let's kill him intently, but let's not, now you get it, Caesar, you dirty. Let's carve him as a dish fit for the gods. That's why he used the word earlier, sacrificers. Let's offer Caesar as a sacrifice to the gods. He is being made fit for the gods. Why? Because he's not being made into a god. Not hew him as a carcass fit for hounds. And let our hearts, as subtle masters do, stir up their servants to an act of rage, and after seem to chide them. This shall make our purpose necessary, not envious, which so appearing to the common eyes, we shall be called purgers, not murderers. The people, he says, will look at us as having cleansed Rome. And for Mark Antony, don't worry about him. He can do more than Caesar's arm when Caesar's head is off. Cassius, yeah, but I fear him. Trebonius, there's no fear in him. Let him not die. He will live and laugh at this hereafter. Well, not really. Okay? Cassius says, I don't know that Caesar's going to come forth today. He's been suspicious of late. Meaning, superstitious of late. Yet, how superstitious was he when he entered Rome and the soothsayer said, beware the Ides of March. Did he hightail it back out of town? Nope. He was like, shut up.
But he was still curious enough to stop.
He was curious enough to stop the big procession. He tells him that, and he says, not important. Okay? Let's see here. Skip a bunch. Portia, Brutus's wife, comes in. And she tells him, something's wrong. I can tell. You're not yourself. Let me in on it. I'm your wife. I'm not your slave. I'm not your servant. Interesting little thing about, kind of marriage here, 271. Upon my knees I charm you by my once commended beauty, by all your vows of love, and that great vow which did incorporate and make us one, that you unfold to me yourself, your half, why you are heavy, and what men tonight have had resort to you. For here have been some 6 or 7. And he says, don't kneel beside me, get up. I should not need if you were gentle, Brutus, within the bond of marriage. Tell me, Brutus, is it accepted I should know no secrets that appertain to you? In other words, I am your other half. Fess up. Dwell I but in the suburbs, 286, of your good pleasure? Notice, his good pleasure is the herb, the city. She says, do I merely dwell on the outskirts? Am I merely here to pleasure you and not to bear your problems with you? If it be no more, Portia is Brutus's harlot, not his wife. In other words, I live in the stews where the harlots live. Shakespeare probably has in mind here, the city of London. Well, where did the whores dwell? Outside the city proper. Why? Because the mayor and the laws of London then did not affect them. So they lived down around the Globe Theatre, for example, because that was outside the city of London. Okay? Tell me your counsels. And he says, O ye gods, render me worthy of this noble wife. Make me worthy. Does he tell her? Nope. By and by thy bosom shall partake the secrets of my heart. All my engagements I will construe to thee. All the charactery of my sad brows. Leave me. When the time comes, I'll let you know. Okay? I'm going to skip that. 2:2. We see Caesar. Caesar, thunder, lightning still going on. Caesar talks about Calpurnia crying out in her sleep. Help ho, they murder Caesar. Okay? She says, what do you mean? Are you going forth today? No, don't go out. Caesar says, I am going to go forth. The things that threaten me never look but on my back. When they shall see the face of Caesar, they are vanished. The things that threaten me have been what? Back here. When I turn and face them, they run away. She says, I've had dreams. There have been portents. I fear them. What can be avoided? Caesar 26. What can be avoided whose end is purposed by the mighty gods? Notice, what is he implying?
And it's my time to die, it's time to die.
One of Mel Brooks's and Gene Wilder's all-time great films, Young Frankenstein. Destiny, destiny. There's no escaping destiny. That's what he's talking about. If the gods, what? Have purposed your end, there's nothing you can do about it. Right? Read Oedipus the King. Yet Caesar shall go forth. Calpurnia. When beggars die, there are no comets seen. In other words, comets, thunderstorms, dead people walking the streets. These are indications about something for the movers and shakers of society, not beggars. The universe doesn't care, in other words, when a beggar dies. The heavens blaze themselves forth the death of princes. What did Glendower say about his birth? The earth shook, the heavens were on fire, Caesar. Cowards die many times before their deaths. Why?
Because they keep running away in fear of dying, so they never face it.
It's because they fear death. That's it. They fear death. They're not willing to face it. The valiant never taste of death but once. The valiant go into the jaws of death. They face death many times, but they only die once. Of all the wonders that I yet have heard, it seems to me most strange that men should fear, seeing that death, a necessary end, will come when it will come. Caesar is a good Stoic. Why fear death? Or he's a good Platonist, or Socratesian, or however you. Because Socrates says what? Why fear death? You fear the things you know. You don't fear the unknown. You don't fear to go outside your room, your house, every day. You don't know what's going to happen that day. Nobody does. You assume you do because of what happened the day before, but you don't know that's going to be the case. I mean, look at the craziness going on in Austin, Texas. Mail bombs and other bombs are just showing up seemingly randomly. Sides of roads, people's doorsteps, FedEx facility this morning, and nobody knows who's sending them, what's causing them. So now people are being told in the city of Austin, several 100,000, stay inside. Why? Because you don't know what's outside your door. Okay? Death is a necessary end. Why is it necessary? It cannot be avoided. So he's saying, hey, if today's my day, today's my day. So he asked, what do the auguries say? What do the fortune tellers say? Stay here. They could not find a heart within the beast, plucking the entrails of an offering. And he says, the gods do this in shame of cowardice. Caesar should be a beast without a heart if he should stay at home today for fear. C.S. Lewis once wrote a little book called The Abolition of Man. And the abolition of man is entirely about how the modern educational establishment, and he's writing this in 1946 or so, produces what he calls men without chests. That is, men and women, without a moral compass and center that enables them to face the problems of the day. And instead, what do? They try to run from them. That's exactly what Caesar's talking about. The bird that was ripped open that had no heart, he says, I would be that bird if I didn't show heart to go out and face the world today. Calpurnia, your wisdom is consumed in confidence. Your wisdom up here is consumed in what? What does she mean by confidence? Arrogance. Ego. You think you're untouchable, is essentially what she's saying. She said, don't go. Tell everybody that I asked you not to go. Okay? So Caesar tells Decius, go tell them Caesar will not come. Most mighty Caesar, I got to be able to tell him why, lest I be laughed at. Well, the cause is in my will. In other words, what do you mean you have to tell them why? I told you. That's why. Clear enough. I will not come. That's enough to satisfy the Senate. You don't ask me, boy, for reasons, in other words. Okay, my wife, she wants me to stay at home. She dreamt she saw my statue, which like a fountain with 100 spouts did run pure blood, and many lusty Romans came smiling, and she fears for my life. Decius, oh, that's it? No. You've misinterpreted the dream. It's a fair vision. Your statue spouting blood and many pipes in which so many smiling Romans bathe signifies that from you great Rome shall suck reviving blood. And that great men shall press for tincture stains, relics, and cognizance. That's what Calpurnia's dream means. In other words, Caesar, your blood will be like a holy relic, even though that's anachronistic again. That's Shakespeare's 16th century mind putting something in 1st century, BC Rome. And he's like, I like that. I like that interpretation. That's even better. Okay? And Decius says, they're going to crown you today. They're going to make you king. You stay home, 96, their minds may change. Tick, tock, tick, tock. Caesar starts to do, better strike while the iron is hot. If Caesar hide himself, shall they not whisper, Caesar is afraid? How foolish do your fears seem now, Calpurnia. I am ashamed that I did yield to them. What has Decius just done? He's appealed to his vanity. He's appealed to his ego and his pride. Okay? So, 2-3, Artemidorus comes in, reading a paper. Caesar, beware of Brutus. Take heed of Cassius. Come not near Casca. Have an eye to Cinna. Trust not Trebonius. Mark well Metellus Cimber. Decius Brutus loves thee not. That's the Decius who just convinced him to show up. Okay? And Artemidorus is thinking, I got to get to Caesar. Right? So let's skip to 3. What time is it? 9:06. Caesar says to the soothsayer, it's a marcher come. Hello, I'm healthy, I'm fine. Aye, Caesar, but not gone. That is tick-tock. Clock's still ticking. Okay? So Artemidorus tries to give him the paper. And the others kind of block him out. Cassius says, 18, I fear our purpose is discovered. Cassius says, Casca be sudden, we fear prevention, that is, we fear being stopped. Brutus, what shall be done? If it's known, that is, if word gets out what we've been planning, we're dead. Okay? So Cinna says, Casca, you are the first that rears your hand. So they press on Caesar. Okay? Caesar, are we all ready? In other words, you have the crown, right? You guys ready for this? What is now amiss that Caesar and his Senate must redress? Metellus kneels. Caesar, no, you know. So Caesar says, Cassius, 56. Pardon, Caesar. Caesar, pardon. As low as to thy foot doth Cassius fall, to beg enfranchisement for Publius Cimber. Okay? Metellus is Cimber's brother or cousin. I can't remember which. They're asking for freedom for Cimber, or Kimber as it's sometimes pronounced. Caesar won't grant it. Okay? Caesar, I could be well moved if I were as you. If I were a low-life nobody like you, Cassius, then appeals to me would be useful. If I could pray to move, prayers would move me. But I am constant as the northern star. In other words, I've made my decision, and just as the northern star does not move in the heavens, nor will I move. Of whose true fixed and resting quality there is no fellow in the firmament. The skies are painted with unnumbered sparks. They are all fire, and every one doth shine. But there's but one, and all doth hold his place. So in the world. The stars all move, except for that one. 'Tis furnished well with men, and men are flesh and blood, and apprehensive. Yet in the number I do know but one that unassailable holds on his rank, unshakable motion, and I am he. Let me a little show it even in this. I was constant. Cimber should be banished. Constant. What's he mean? I meant it. I'm not taking it back. And constant do remain to help keep himself. Cinna kneels. Oh, Caesar. What's he doing? He's pleading for Cimber. You kind of get the impression, if Caesar backs off, okay, you can have Cimber back. Maybe they won't go through with it. Hence, wilt thou lift up Olympus? In other words, your prayers are more likely, biblical allusion here, by the way, to move a mountain, Mount Olympus, seat of the gods, than they are to move me. Decius, great Caesar. And he looks, because all the conspirators are now kneeling. Brutus, you too, you're going to take a knee? Casca, speak hands for me. Casca first, Brutus last. Et tu, Brute? It's the vocative case. He's calling out, and you too, Brutus? Then fall Caesar. Brutus's is the last one. Brutus's stab is metaphorically the one that kills Caesar. The other 33 stab wounds are mere flesh wounds. It's Brutus's that pierces the heart. You could say Caesar dies of a broken heart because he trusted Brutus. Okay? Cinna, liberty, freedom, tyranny is dead. You know, it's like Les Miserables. I mean, so Brutus says, let no man abide this deed, but we the doers. That is, everybody else leaves, but them. Mark Antony comes in, and he and Brutus speak, and he's like, just give me the reasons, and I'll accept it. 152 and following. Okay. He says, tell me why. I do beseech you, if you bear me hard, now whilst your purple hands do reek and smoke, fulfill your pleasure. Live 1,000 years, I shall not find myself. Brutus, 171. Our hearts you see not, they are pitiful. That is, you see our hands stained in blood. You don't see the motives. And pity to the general wrong of Rome, as fire drives out fire, so pity, pity, hath done this deed on Caesar. Be patient. Top of the next page. Till we have appeased, line 181, till we have appeased the multitude beside themselves with fear. In other words, the multitude doesn't know what's going on. I mean, they know Caesar's dead. They don't know the causes. And so there's a lot of tumult. He says, until we calm them down and explain why everything was done. Like, really, if, Lee Harvey Oswald could only have gone on CBS and explained why he put a bullet through JFK's head. And everybody would have said, oh, okay, I understand, that's fine. Why I that did love Caesar when I struck him have thus proceeded. Antony, okay, just let me speak at his funeral, please. I loved him. And Brutus says, okay, that's all I seek. 229. And am moreover suitor that I may produce his body to the marketplace, and in the pulpit as becomes a friend, speak in the order of his funeral. Let me carry his body to the public marketplace, like to the forum, and let me speak in the funeral. In other words, one of many. Brutus, okay. Cassius, Ixnay art Antony may ikingspe, don't let him speak. Cassius is right? Because Mark Antony has one of the greatest speeches in all of Shakespeare's plays. So, Brutus and everybody leaves, and Mark Antony gets a soliloquy. Oh, pardon me, thou bleeding piece of earth, that I am meek and gentle with these butchers. Thou art the ruins of the noblest man that ever lived in the tide of times. Well, until Brutus dies, because then he's the noblest man. So Mark Antony's a little, Woe to the hand that shed this costly blood. Over thy wounds now do I prophesy, which like dumb mouths do ope their ruby lips to beg the voice and utterance of my tongue. A curse shall light upon the limbs of men. Domestic fury, fierce civil strife shall cumber all the parts of Italy. In other words, now all hell will break loose. Skip down to 274. Shall in these confines, that is, Caesar's spirit seeking revenge, shall in these confines with a monarch's voice cry havoc and let slip the dogs of war. That this foul deed shall smell above the earth with carrion and groaning for burial. So, 3-2. Brutus gives his funeral oration. He says, hear me for my cause, be silent that you may hear, believe me for mine honor, have respect to mine honor, that you may believe. He's saying, you know my honor. Hear me for that. Why? So that you can show respect for what you believe. Center me in your wisdom. And awake your senses that you may be the better judge. If there be anybody here that says Brutus's love was no less to Caesar than his, is there anybody here who is friend to Caesar that can say my love toward Caesar was any less than anybody else's? Anybody? Any hands out there? Nobody. Okay. If then that friend demand why Brutus rose against Caesar, this is my answer. Not that I love Caesar less, but that I loved Rome more. What's he saying? I loved Rome so much, what did I do? I killed my friend who was going to make Rome less than it is. That's a noble act. Okay? As Caesar loved me, I weep for him. As he was fortunate, I rejoiced at it. As he was valiant, I honor him. But as he was ambitious, I slew him. In other words, he took what he had and he wanted more. And for that he had to die. Okay? So, he says, let me depart alone, good countrymen. Line 56. And for my sake, stay. Listen to Mark Antony. Right? Mark Antony. Friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears. Pay attention. This is going to be good. That's what lend me your ears means. And if you've ever seen what Monty Python, that's not Monty Python. It is Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. Another Mel Brooks. They have, Robin Hood deliver a speech. Friends, Englishmen, countrymen, lend me your ears. And you get a bunch of fake ears thrown up at them. Kind of a thing. I come to bury Caesar, not to praise him. The evil that men do lives after them. The good is often interred with their bones. Now, one of the greatest two lines in all of Shakespeare. Because just think of that. The evil that men do lives after them. The good is oft interred with their bones. We tend to remember only the bad stuff people do, and not the good stuff. People who lived all their lives doing good things, and then they die doing something bad. And what are they remembered for? The bad thing. Or they do good things in office, and then they do something bad or stupid. And what are they remembered for? The bad or stupid thing. So let it be with Caesar. The noble Brutus hath told you Caesar was ambitious. Notice how he describes Brutus. Noble Brutus. If it were so, it was a grievous fault. Notice he doesn't say it is a grievous fault. It's if it were so. If Caesar were ambitious, then it would be a grievous fault. He's introducing the element of doubt. And grievously has Caesar answered it. Here, under leave of Brutus and the rest, that is, they've given me permission to say this. Notice, however, Brutus did not get an advance copy of the speech. You should take this line out, Here, under leave of Brutus and the rest, and Brutus is an honorable man. They're all honorable men. So are they all honorable men. Come I to speak in Caesar's funeral. He was my friend, faithful and just to me. But Brutus says he was ambitious. And Brutus is an honorable man. He hath brought many captives home to Rome, whose ransoms did the general coffers fill. That is, the ransoms for these prisoners didn't enrich Caesar. They enriched whom? The people. Did this in Caesar seem ambitious? When that the poor have cried, Caesar hath wept. Ambition should be made of sterner stuff. Yet Brutus says he was ambitious, and Brutus is an honorable man. We should believe honorable men. You all did see that on the Lupercal I thrice presented him a kingly crown, which he did thrice resist. Was this ambition? Yet Brutus says he was ambitious, and sure, he is an honorable man. I speak not to disprove what Brutus spoke, but here I am to speak what I do know. You all did love him once, not without cause. What cause withholds you then to mourn for him? You loved him before, and you rightly loved him. So why don't you mourn him now? Oh, judgment, thou art fled to brutish beasts, and men have lost their reason. Bear with, my heart is in the coffin there with Caesar. And I must pause till it come back to me. And so he takes a nice long pause. Why?
To give everyone time to think over the speech.
Exactly. To let everything he said just percolate. Okay? Huh. There's much reason in these sayings. Caesar's been wrong. Starts to spread. Yesterday the word of Caesar might have stood against the world. Now lies he there, none support to do him reverence. Okay? He mentions the will. He holds it up. Here, I've got Caesar's will. Just wait till you see what's in here. Read it, read it, read it. He goes, patience, patience, friends. I must not read it. It is not meet you know how Caesar loved you. You are not wood, you are not stones, but men, and being men, hearing the will of Caesar, it will inflame you. It will make you mad. In other words, it will make you go after those honorable men. Okay? So they press forward. Antony, if you have tears, 170, prepare to shed them now. You all do know this mantle. And he holds up Caesar's mantle. Stab wounds and blood all over it, I remember the first time ever Caesar put it on, blah, 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 blah. 181. If Brutus so unkindly knocked her no, for Brutus, as you know, was Caesar's angel, guardian, protector, guide. Judge, O you gods, how dearly Caesar loved him. This was the most unkindest cut of all. For when the noble Caesar saw him stab, ingratitude, more strong than traitors' arms, quite vanquished him. That's the you too, Brutus? Then burst his mighty heart. He died of a broken heart. Okay? He lifts Caesar's mantle. They all run off. Antony says, friends, you go to do you know not what. Wherein hath Caesar thus deserved your loves? Alas, you know not. I must tell you then, you have forgot the will, and he has the will. To every Roman citizen he gives. What? A car in the driveway, a pot with a chicken, a house, 2-car garage. Political promises. He's left you all his walks, his private arbors, new planted orchards. And they all run off. And Antony is left by himself. Mischief thou art afoot, take thou what course thou wilt. Okay? What's the last 2 lines mean by Mark Antony? What are they showing us about his speech?
He doesn't really know how it's going to affect everybody, but he knows it's going to do some sort of turmoil and damage.
Yes to the second part. I'll disagree with the first part. He knows exactly what it's going to do.
It was designed to do that.
Exactly. It's one of Shakespeare's greatest examples of the power of political rhetoric. He was just Hitler. Or Henry V. Both of whom use rhetoric to do what? Stir up the people. Brutus uses rhetoric for what purpose? To calm them down. Mark Antony doesn't want them calm. He wants to stir it up. Why? Just kind of betrays some of my thinking of Mark Antony. I know we're over time. Because he already sees, I can have a third of the pie. Okay? All right, we'll finish Caesar on whatever day, Thursday, which means we're a day behind. I have no idea how we'll get caught up.